said, hey, there are two ways to work. One is you work on the time that you have that is given, or you never look at the clock and work. So he showed that path that if you stop looking at the watch and change the attitude from it's already 6 o'clock to it's just 6 o'clock, you will go far away in life, because the mindset, the attitude, the difference that you'll create in your job is there. It's not the fear of failure that you should have. It's just that why do you want to succeed? Because if you don't quit, you will never fail. So that's the part, right? So people quit because of that fear of failure, or they don't even start, many of them. Do you want to be successful, or do you want to be significant? And I've always believed that I want to be significant. If my presence made a difference, then my absence will be felt.
Let's start with your team. Tell us a little bit, the listeners, just a little bit about the group that you run and the team that you're leading.
Yeah, so I have the opportunity, and it's a fantastic one, to lead globally a team of professionals that are really taking partnerships to the next level. So the idea is that how do you work with the tech world and make it worth it for us, the partners, and of course, the most important player, our end clients, that how can they really get the chaos to clarity path as we start to talk about newer technologies like AI, cybersecurity, and some of the others that are coming up, the robotics, the digital twins, and so many others that are coming in that way. So my team does that, and I have a great opportunity to work with them. Yeah.
What's the size and scope of your team?
I lead a team a little over 100 people, and they kind of support all the technology towers that are relevant today and across the globe that makes it important for them to support those. So that's how it is today.
So I noticed you graduated with an electrical engineering degree. Is that right? In India? Electronics. Okay. And you grew up in India.
That is correct.
So can we go back a little bit to your childhood? What was it like growing up in India and some of the things that influenced you as a kid?
I grew up in a middle-class family, Rob. So my dad worked in the finance industry, and he retired as the assistant general manager of one of the leading banks in India. And when you associate banks, you always feel that they are closed on Saturdays and Sundays and all public holidays. They work for a limited number of hours. But I saw my dad working on Saturdays and Sundays and working very hard. He used to leave at 7 a.m., doesn't be back home till 10 p.m. And we always used to wonder what he's up to. And he said, hey, there are two ways to work. One is you work on the time that you have that is given, or you never look at the clock and work. So he showed that path that if you stop looking at the watch and change the attitude from it's already 6 o'clock to it's just 6 o'clock, you will go far away in life, because the mindset, the attitude, the difference that you'll create in your job is there. So that's how I grew up with those thoughts. Now, did I always want to become an engineer? No. Did I want to join the field of finance industry? Absolutely no. But what I wanted to do was literature and theater. And then becoming a part of that era with the middle class family, finding that path is not easy. So when you look around the system, hey, you need to be an engineer, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer. So I moved my priorities from drama, and I got into physics and maths, and I started to love it. And that's where I got into electronics engineering, and I started to build myself in that world. And I loved it. And then suddenly the software was the next big thing being talked about. So how do you really move from an electronics major working towards computer science and everything? And with so much opportunities around, that was the transition from being an electronics engineer to a software engineer with Tata Consultancy Services. That's what happened. Yeah.
Interesting. But your initial thought when you were a kid was drama. Did you want to be an actor?
Yes, I wanted to be. I used to take very active participation in plays across all the activities in up till high school and then some part of college. I used to write a lot and I used to write in both Hindi language and English. And then slowly and slowly, yeah, I still continued that till the job really did it. And now I'm a reader. So I still do reading. I still do watch a lot of theater, but I really am not very active into those realms now. But probably that would be my retirement plans, so retirement goals. As I plan to do that, that's what probably I would be doing. Yeah,
To go back to,
writing, at least writing. I don't know about
yeah,
theater anymore, but writing, yes. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm sure you could start at a local theater in San Diego and
Of course I could, yeah, but I don't want to be a magician actor and make the audience disappear after my act.
well, you've got your Santa acting gig, so you've already.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I have my profile built up already through that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you stuck with it a little bit. So was it in college that you realized, did you have a calling for leadership or did that develop once you got started? Did you go straight to TCS from college?
Yes, I did. So I'm a life
Okay.
ECS, and they come when they look at their evaluation process of picking up fresh grads and seeing that how they can catch them young. And I was lucky to be picked up by TCS, and that's what happened. So yes, it
Yeah.
happened right through them.
Yeah. And I don't know if at that stage you're really thinking about leadership. You're more excited about your initial role and how can you succeed at that?
That is true, Rob. But what I always loved was I always liked to take a lead. Now, did I want to become a leader was a different question. So if there was an event to be organized, if there was, I was a quizzer as well, a very avid quizzer. Now, I would quiz, but I would do a lot of quizzes as a quiz master. But I used to love having those events set up and lead those. So I never wanted to be a leader. I never had the thought of being a leader, but I always did those events and said I could plan better. I could do those things. Probably that's where it all started. And I said I could do it at a different scale. Yes.
Yeah. And was your first role in India with TCS?
Yes. My first role was in India at TCS, but I started working for a company outside of India. I started.
Okay. And then when did they transfer you to the United States?
It's starting 2001. It was an on and off. I used to come to the United States or travel across the globe. I started to build myself doing more than what I was always given. That was the teaching from my dad, which I applied. And I started to find it worked so well because I always built myself for the next role while I was doing what it was. Now, for that, I had to work harder. But that really helped me move fast. And then finally in 2008 is when I made the formal move to the United States. And I've been here since then.
So you mentioned your dad, and he had a big role in kind of mentoring you and showing you an example of hard work and what you can accomplish. Were there any others that influenced you from a leadership perspective or just business ethics perspective?
If you really see, the Tata Group itself is a big influence, Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, but the Tata is a brand in India, and that brand is equated to ethics, integrity, and trust. And if you see, these are the most formidable things that you associate with a leader, anyways. So when you started to work with them and you say you get an offer to work with one of their companies, you can start to see that happen. So when you go back to the lineage of the Tata brand and the leadership of the Tata Group, you start to see that, yes, they led by example. They led with people first in mind and business second. So that becomes an important play as well.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of influence over the 25 years there.
25 years and it started to grow. That's why I'm still alive for at Tata.
That's a great career. I'd like to dive into challenges. What have been some particularly big challenges you've had in your career? Any particular moments that stand out?
Absolutely. So once I decided to be an engineer, and now when you know you want to get into the best college, and to get to the best college in India, you have to get through a very rigorous process of testing, and you have to go through multiple stages. So you prepare a lot. So once I did my schooling, I was preparing along with my schooling to get through that, and I did not make it. And that was hard because I put in a lot of hard work. Now I had two choices. I could give up at that time and look for something more simpler, or I could give it another shot. So restart. And that's what exactly I did, Rob. I restarted. I took a year off after my school. I did not join the colleges that I could get. And then I worked hard and prepared. And the success was that I was the seventh ranker in the entire kind of the state where I grew up in. And that gave me the opportunities to pick up the best college I can. So I had to wait for a year. I have to pick myself up. And I do remember I cried a lot when I did not make the first time. And my mom was there with me and says, not to worry about. This is small things. And that's where I learned a lot of things from my mom as well. When my dad taught me something, my mom said, not to worry. Don't worry about it. Put it. And she was disciplined, very hardworking as well. She was a homemaker and she put all her effort with us. And that's where I realized I put in that effort. And after that, I never looked back. So that's where one of the biggest lessons was, even before I started my college education, is not to give up. The mindset is the key. And that's what I've realized in job, because you will get escalations in job. You will have missed promotions in job. You will miss out on a lot of opportunities of the roles that you always wanted to do. But the idea is that somebody there is thinking that, are you the right choice? They know it better. And now what do you need? You should know. You should ask them. You should figure out. And I think that's where I've learned that I need to do a lot of self-learning by myself to be able to ready to do the next big thing.
That's a great lesson to learn at a young age, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I
And
was
thanks to your mom to help you get through that. Because for
she did.
you, I'm sure it just felt totally devastating, like my life is over.
But yeah, I just cried. I said, what? Put in all the efforts. I stopped meeting my friends. I stopped going out, and it was just 18 hours flat because I had to get to school. I had to prepare for these testings. It was all this, but then I said I didn't make it. Then I realized probably there was something missing. And when you really looked at what was missing, you realized, and when you focus the efforts in that way, tied to the right mentoring on the technical side to prepare for those, it worked out. So I think a lot of us, what we don't do is we don't do a self-assessment in the most genuine way to see where the gap is, Rob. And that's what I start to work with my team as well, is that you have two choices. Either you take a feedback from me, and many a times nobody likes to take feedback, or you take a feedback from yourself. For that, you need the maturity. Hey, could I have done this presentation better, both in content and articulation? Or why did he ask that question if that was already on my slide? Maybe I could have put it in a different way. So when you do that self-learning, you really learn a lot. And that's what I really did.
I've been thinking about and talking about grit. And grit is defined as the combination of both passion and perseverance. And if you look at that example, you had the passion to get into a great school, and your mom helped you get the perseverance
That is so true.
to
That is
dig
so
in.
true. Yes. Yes.
And if you hadn't had the passion for it, you probably would have not continued.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no life without passion. So if most of the people think money is the motivation, I think that's not right. You have to have your motivation as an inspiration, and that defines your purpose. So when the purpose is so clear, then nothing can beat it. And I think we are losing the purpose, a lot of us. And that's what I keep telling my kids. So when my daughter, one day she was leaving school very early, and she was, I think, in her high school, she was a senior at high school. And I said, why are you leaving early? She said, I had given a test and I scored a lesser grade on it. So I want to improve my grade. I said, why do you want to improve your grade? She said, I can get into a good college. I said, why do you want to get into a good college? So that I can get a good job. Why do you want to do a good job? What is the definition of a job? And then she started to think and get worried. Will I get that first grade by itself? So I told her, see, if it's a problem, you'll find a solution. But if it's a fact, you cannot find a solution to it. It's a fact. I agree. So figure out why you want to do what you're doing. And a lot of us are actually getting confused with that purpose. So they don't know the passion and they're not able to define the purpose, and they keep doing what they're doing and not happy with it. And that's I'm starting to see what happens more and more, especially with the Gen Zs and all the others, right? And that's where I think we have a good role to play
In helping them find that passion.
in helping them find the passion. Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny, as I was hearing you ask those why questions, I was thinking of sales, when we're talking to a prospect and we're asking why this, why this, why this, and uncovering, peeling back the onion to
Yeah,
get to the real reason why they want this
exactly.
technology or this project.
So true. So true. It's same question. It's the same sales. You do sales everywhere, basically. And that's the whole idea is that are you doing it by asking the right questions? So we don't know the right questions to ask.
Yeah. I had a similar situation with my grandson who wanted to learn how to ride a bike, and he was really struggling keeping his balance, and he was so afraid of falling off the bike and what would happen. And so I asked him the same question: why do you want to learn how to ride a bike? And I kept asking to try to find the passion for getting on the bike and learning how to ride in the first place. And that once he found that went a long way to getting the courage that he needed, and to forget about the prospect of failure or of falling.
Very true. That's a great way to teach your grandson. Yeah.
Yeah. So those lessons can happen early on in life.
Yeah. And when the fear goes away, right? And I think that the fear is what makes us the fear. Most of the time, it's the fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Will I fail if I do this? I think that you have to get out of your mindset.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
the fear of failure that you should have. It's just that why do you want to succeed? Because if you don't quit, you will never fail. So that's the part, right? So people quit because of that fear of failure, or they don't even start, many of them. So that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
What were some particular failure moments that have stood out for you that I'm sure became great learning moments? If you look back on your career.
There are so many, Rob. See, you have more failures than this, but then every time I think I do remember when we grew up in India, obviously, right? One of the things that both the IT services industry was you get an opportunity to go overseas. And when you sit down and you say, okay, how soon can I get that opportunity? Now, there was an opportunity for somebody to be out there, and it came in, and I was one of the contenders. There were two of us. And then when you realize that, we both had skills. So the whole idea was that they could send only one, while the best would be a combination of both. And that's when I was not picked over, I realized what did I lack. So again, I had the good communication skill. I had the better interpersonal skills to be able to connect with the clients. But what I did lack was the depth of the understanding of the product, which the other person was much better at. And the role demanded that you be there because you may have to help the end clients through the right customer engineering support. So then I said, okay, that's the easier part to fix because for that I need to put a lot of self effort in learning. And I did that. And another 3 months, I was back. I was out there. So that was my first learning that had I got disturbed by that and not. So we miss the part of analysis. And I think that's where it holds us down. That was the first part again. Once you're in the job, what you're aspiring for, and do that again and again. So
Yeah,
then,
you make me think of situations when you're looking at a promotion, you want this new position, a new title, and you're overlooked, someone else gets it. And a natural reaction many times is just anger or like, what's going on? They're not being fair. But you really have to make a really honest self-assessment of the situation.
yeah. And if you feel that you were unfairly dealt with, then have a chat. Or if that still don't understand, then probably if you feel you were there and somebody was unfair to you, then you have choices. You always have choices. And it's what is a choice you pick up at that time is the key. Rob.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
feel that you could have a choice to maybe move on or something. If did I ever thought of leaving TCS? Absolutely. It's my 27th year and 30 times I have thought to leave TCS. So it's not that you never thought about it. But the whole idea is that what are you doing? Right? So when you start your career writing software on telecom switches to leading one of the largest organizations partnership across the globe, that's a journey. And that's a journey. And how do you really build yourself up for that journey is the key. Yeah.
Are there any particularly big, momentous leadership decisions that you've had to make along the way? Where you had to make some very specific, maybe a strategic choice that really could have a huge impact either way on the business?
Yes, I had to, Rob. And so I'll be a little discreet here, but you sometimes what happens is you pick up between experience and mindset. So there is an experience available in the team, which kind of is leading a portion of your business. And you know that is there. But the key here is that sometimes experience gives way to complacency. And then there are times that come in today's, and these are the times when you have to have one trait, willingness to unlearn, and then learn and unlearn and relearn. Now you find that sometimes that experience doesn't want to do that. And there you have to make a choice is this the right person to lead, or should you have somebody being looked at that piece where there is more mindset and the ability to learn? I had to make some of those hard decisions over the last several years. I do realize that it makes the conversations uncomfortable, but it again depends on the maturity of the people that you're dealing with. Some would get it and some would don't. But it's at the end of the day, you have to take those tough calls. And I had to do that many a times. And that's where I start to see what leadership is about. Are you willing to listen? And that's again a learning that sometimes you don't just learn from your superiors above, you can really learn from your peers, and you can learn from your teams that report into you. Hey, I don't agree with you. Okay, why? And then those questions, you have to have the maturity to be able to let your ego go and then be able to learn that.
What types of things have you had to unlearn? Are there any specific examples?
Oh, I'll tell you, the last, mm, I would say 2 to 3 years, I'll put 5 years. I had to unlearn that I have worked in this industry for 2 decades. That was the biggest unlearning I had to do, because that sets you saying, I have been there too long. I know this. Because what happened was I started to work with a lot of folks who just did their undergrad or postgrads in masters and come and join, and I had to work with them so closely. Their thought process is so different. They don't care. We believe in the loyalty dimension of our business. The loyalty could be with your boss, with the unit, with the organization or the brand. You say that, hey, sometimes the risk of the fear, right? That if I move on, would I be acceptable somewhere else? So the risk of losing a job, not being able to find, they don't care about that. So when you start to see what are they looking at in you as a leader is, hey, can this person be my mentor, coach, and a leader rather than a manager? And that's where I had to unlearn. I couldn't shove my 20 years of experience on them. It would not have worked. And I see more and more, it does not work, because my dad used to tell me, I know it. I cannot tell it to my kids. I know it, because they could prove me wrong instantly. So the same thing happened at work. And that was my biggest unlearning is hear them out and challenge them, and challenge yourself in exactly the same way so that your frequency could start to match. Now, it's getting harder with people who have spent more time in the industry to have this same conversation with them than to the people who are newer in the industry. So I find it more comfortable to go left on the spectrum of experience than sometimes going right on the experience spectrum with my teams. That's what I'm starting to see, Rob.
Interesting. And do you think that's because they don't have the willingness to unlearn
Yes.
and maintain that curiosity?
Yes. You used a very good word, Rob, curiosity. I think the curiosity is what we all need to have right now. And believe me, we have better tools to satisfy the curiosity now than we had earlier. It's just that anything that comes up and you want to know about it, you can probably know it in few seconds than you could do earlier. So the curiosity part is missing. If somebody is saying something about a term that you don't know, first of all, Do you admit that you don't know about it? And second, do you have the ability to say, you know what, let me learn and come back to you, or I want to set up time and learn from you. So if the more we spend time to learn from the fresh grads on how are they approaching design, programming, product engineering, you have a better chance to survive than just listening to the people who says, I have been in this too long and I know everything. That's what my feeling is right now.
Yeah, and do you think that's especially important now with the explosion of AI and all the new opportunities that come with it?
Yes. Yes. It's become even more important now in order for us to do that. So there is a space between hunky and dory. And that space is what we need to identify, Rob, because that space is the real space. That space is the practical space. And we need to do it. We need to figure out. Yeah. Because challenges that that are going to come to us is that how collectively we can solve those problems. And a lot of the things that I'm feeling is that the new experience that is coming in, they are hesitating in taking more and more responsibility roles where people management is involved. So how do you excite them that that's a great opportunity space, because that develops leadership, which is important. And then if you have those conversations, they would cite you about these MIT billionaires and millionaires and who do it, they did it all alone, right? So it becomes so important. It's not easy to have those conversations, but this is what is where it becomes important is how do you have the conversations and say, how do you build leadership? How do you work with people? Yeah.
Do you find that you're spending more and more time in that area of the business and in your leadership, having those kind of conversations?
More than I thought, Rob, I would.
Yeah.
Because that's the culture you want to fix. You could create any strategy, but with not that right culture not in place, it would eat it up anytime, as they always say it, and it's eating it up. So unless that mindset is right, unless that culture is right, and it's not easy, Rob, it's really not easy. But if people are not realizing what's happening around from an AI point of view, what impact it would have on a lot of roles, then you will have to start to bring out some of those conversations out. That, hey, what you are doing, can it continue without you? If we take ourselves out of the equation today, would the equation still solve and remain balanced? And that's the conversation I have. I said, take it out and just see if you're not in the conversation in the equation, would your job continue? What you're doing can still happen. And that's where your value function starts to be identified. And that's what I'm having more than these conversations with all of my teams, my leaders. And I think the other part, Rob, is that we hesitate to talk to people which are 2 or 3 or 4 levels below your reporting structure. I think that's not going to work going forward. The skip level leadership, where you have the ability to go down and probably ask the guy who is on the ground certain questions to learn. You are better prepared for meetings. You're better prepared to be able to address a panel, a situation, a topic, because he knows more probably about that. And I think that's the missing link. So if you can have an open door policy for them to reach out to you anytime and you be able to reach out and talk to them on any topic, I think that's the open culture we need right now, more and more and more, to break down those hierarchies.
There are a lot of different leadership styles, right? And there's the very tough leader, just pound, pound, pound. There's I think the leadership, servant leadership, leadership with a lot of humility. How do you strike that balance? Because it sounds like the tough pounding, that's not going to work with the younger generation coming into the workforce.
Yes, it won't work with them. There's no way it will work with them. And I've seen that with a lot of my friends whose kids started to work somewhere and then worked somewhere else and somewhere else. And I said, you've been with this company for 25, 30 years and your kids, he says, they would just come to me and say, my boss said me this. So what? I'm not going to work tomorrow. And I said, wow, I would have probably not even be married if I had done this the first day on the job, because my boss said so many things. I would have been out of a job. There would have been no girl ready to marry me. So the whole idea is that it's happening more and more. And I think it's a patience virtue. And I read somewhere else that people who hired the Gen Zs 3, 4 years back are letting them go more and more. And I'm not surprised to hear that stats. But then my question is, are we as an employer or as a leader doing enough for that not to happen? So it's again comes to us is because they are the future. You have to work with them. And then the balance between the experience and energy has to happen somewhere. There's so much energy out there. There's so much experience out there. How do you get the two together and kind of have them work together today, Rob? That's my thought.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Do you think your colleagues in leadership are recognizing this as well?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, yes. So I always have one simple thought around this, Rob, that what is your sphere of influence? In your sphere of influence is a small circle most of the time, or a sphere. And that sphere, if you can make an impact too, and that each of the nodes on that sphere interact with other spheres, you could really grow that sphere over a period of time through that impact. But what when people say that, oh, it's out of my control, I understand. Do everything that is in your control, but are you doing that in your control is the key. If you can influence, and each of them starts to think in a way that is more positive, more progressive, more perseverance based, and they are ready to work together, you will start to see that effect happening. And that's the way I see it as. I always tell this, I quote this, and there's a young couple, they moved into a new house. In the morning, the next morning, they were eating breakfast. So the young woman saw the neighbor hanging their washing outside and said, this laundry is not very clean. And she doesn't even know how to wash properly. She needs better soap or a wash or something or something. The husband just looked and remained silent. So every time they would have breakfast and they would see that, he would make the comment. Okay. Then one day, the husband, when she made the statement, got up, took a piece of cloth and wiped their own glass from inside and said it was not the laundry which was dirty, it was their own glass which was dirty, and they could always see. So if you see the analogy drawn out, the dirt is exactly where, and what are we trying to wash? Ability to judge is so easy that we put everything on the outside, but have we cleaned it on the inside? So so that's what happens. The mirror could be dirty, but your face could be really dirtier. So what do you?
Yeah.
That is the question. Don't blame it on the mirror.
Raj, I love these stories that you have and how you can relate them to the situation. How do you maintain so much humility and just humanness in a very high pressure environment? Because I know working with you, and trying to close deals, end of quarter, working with your partners, that's a high pressure environment. How do you maintain your even keel?
It's not easy, Rob. If I say that it's easy, it's not easy. The question is, do we know the problem? And is the problem that a process is not being followed, wasn't followed, or is it that it's an individual problem or a group problem? So what happens is, without understanding this, and when we react, we have a problem. So that's where I'm starting to see that if I can have that pause between the action and the reaction, I am much better. Wherever I have missed on this step, I have caused more damage to both me and the other person and the situation. So this is one of the learnings I'm trying to do is, how do I not react so fast to anything? How do I take that pause? And that's what's helping me out more and more now. Am I there yet? No. But I'm still on this path that I feel that more I do, I think I could be better in my personal relationships, in my professional relationship, is how not to react immediately. And that's what I feel is that when you don't react, but you sit down back and then you think of and then ask questions, you'll better know what the problem is. And then you can advise the others, take that, and that might be better. But I've still made many mistakes, a lot more than I did things right, Rob. So I'm still learning. Yeah.
That's reminds me of some family advice I got once was, when your wife does something, your kids do something that makes you so angry, you've got to count to 10 before you say a word.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing, Rob. It's exactly the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do that and it's better. Yeah.
Yeah. In my case, probably count to 100 at least. All right. I'm going to give you a rapid fire round of questions, Raj. How's that sound? All right. So this, just say whatever comes to mind. Okay.
Okay.
All right. What's one decision-making rule you rely on when time is short to make that decision?
Would it hurt anybody if I make a wrong decision?
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right. What's a book, idea, or mentor that changed the way you lead?
1% better, Atomic Habits. So I cannot improve by a large margin, but if I can be 1% better than the day before, I think at the end of the year, I will be 37 and a half times better. So that's Atomic Habits was one thing that changed my life.
Interesting. I haven't read that one. I'm going to take a look at that. Very good. What's one habit you believe every leader should build or one that they should break?
The one that they should build is that they need to identify when a leader becomes a true leader. And that is when they build another leader. So a leader is not a leader till he has built another leader. And on the same lines, the habit they should break is they should not have followers. And that's most of the time people make that mistake. Hey, I follow your style. No, I want you to have your own, but think like a leader. So if you can make more leaders and have no followers, I think that's what your job is. That's one of the things I keep telling my team all the time.
Interesting. So stop, because sometimes leaders, they try to keep their people in the follower role.
Yes.
Rather than trying to rise them up to be leaders themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's the biggest, boldest risk you've taken in your career that has paid off?
Being with the same company for 27 years, which you won't find often, Rob. So how do you really look at the growth? So as I said, writing software and telecom switches to meeting the C-level people is something that I did. And I would say that's the biggest risk I took by not moving.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because that is a risk in itself. You know,
Yes.
It's a risk leaving, but it's a risk staying too.
Staying too.
Yeah. And you don't hear of these days, you don't hear of people sticking with the same company. Now, it's probably more common at a company like TCS that you have people that stick around that long.
It is. And it's culturally, right? Because you're leading with trust, ethics, and integrity. So that gives you that.
Very nice. I was out cycling the last 2 days with some buddies, and there was a new guy riding with us, and I was chatting with him, and he went to work for Cannondale, the bike manufacturer. And he was with them for 28 years. And I just couldn't believe it. And they went through multiple acquisitions. You know, the bike industry's gone up and down, you know, but he survived for 28 years. It was quite impressive.
That is 22 years is the time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last one. What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
It's not related to leadership.
No.
Start your financial planning as early as possible. Start it as soon as you want to, as you can, is something I do because I got very late in that whole thought process that finance, it's like the money comes, let me enjoy it. No, but the whole idea, and that's what I'm teaching my kids as well. Start thinking about being financially educated and plan for yourself and your future much, much earlier than you actually do.
You'll love this story. So one of the guests I interviewed, Jay McBain, he started that when he was 12.
I know Jay. Yeah, he was at Canales. I met him a few times. Amazing guy.
Yeah, you got to ask him about this. So his mom, I think, was a teacher, and she came home with like an Apple computer, and he wrote his own budgeting software.
Oh.
Yeah. And then he was out on the street or something. He saw a sign about how you could become a millionaire by saving so much every month. And he said, well, what if I start now? So
yes. Yeah.
At a very early age, he started saving for his retirement.
That's fantastic. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great story. Well, just starting to wrap up, Raj, what bold challenges are you looking forward to? Anything that's coming up?
One challenge I have, Rob, that I'm working on very, very seriously is that I keep telling everybody your health is number one, your family is number two, and your work is number three. Because if you lose your health, you cannot take care of your family and you won't be able to work. how do I drive the right balance in all these three elements today with my responsibilities and with so much travels come up? That's one challenge that I'm addressing, and I'm working hard to do that so that I don't lose out on any of these three things. That's one of my
That's
biggest challenges.
yeah, that's a very important element, Raj. And is that both your mental health as well as physical?
Yes, both of them, Rob. I do exercise. I do read books, so I try and see as much as possible I can, but it's both mental and physical.
Yeah.
Because if you're not physically strong, it's a correlation, right? If you're not physically good, you feel mentally weak, but a lot of strength lies up there. The mindset is just be healthy, just do this, just eat right,
Yeah.
and just don't give up on anything. Yeah.
One question I meant to ask you was, as a child and in your leadership, does faith play a role for you in that?
It does. It does, Rob. And you could define faith. Faith is a very large term, but you have to have faith in everything. You have to have faith in what you can see, which is yourself. You have to have faith in your friends, in your family, in your employer, in your boss. You have to have faith in what you cannot see as well, because that's where the whole thing is about. Now, people call that with different names, but the faith is very important. And that's where you get that strength from to be able to take care of all the other faiths. It's extremely important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in particular, it's faith in things that you can't see.
You can see.
Yeah. That's the big difference. What do you hope your leadership and your leadership style will instill in others? You know, those working under you, those working around you?
I just want them to be a student always, Rob. That's all. And I want them to create more and more leaders. What we need are more and more leaders, more and more leaders. And I just hope that they pick that from all my discussions with them, and they make that shift if they're not there. We love ourselves so much that we lose the whole thought that there is somebody else who is more important than us, and then that's what happens to the idiot.
Yeah, I had a stage early in my career of loving myself way too much. That didn't go well. No, you got to put your team ahead of you for sure. You were talking about planning for retirement, but thinking even further, what legacy would you like to leave behind?
That's a question I love, Rob. So it's that, do you want to be successful or do you want to be significant? And I've always believe that I want to be significant. So if my presence made a difference, then my absence will be felt. So the question is, did I make a difference with my presence? So did the purpose and the passion I had of working with people, sharing what I know with them, helping them build up, be a part of certain things in the society that can be more impactful than just work and something else?
Just one last thought, though, perhaps you could leave with us. Based on this journey that you've shared with us, which I really appreciate you sharing it, what's one challenge that you'd give to our listeners? Maybe something they can do this week to lead with more courage and clarity.
Do you have the courage to admit your mistakes? That you were wrong? What you did was not right, rather than defend it. So the first thing is just see and think that, did you make a mistake ever and had the courage to accept that mistake? And if you have, that's it. If not, just write it down, and it's still not too late to admit that mistake. Just admit it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great advice. Raj, thank you again. A great, bold journey. I wish you best of luck as you continue this journey of yours.
Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, look forward to the same. And thank you once again for reaching out.